No, because I'm paying, remember?
I actually can't get into the UK. For lyrics, old lyrics from like Bass.
From 50 Cent getting banned from Summer Jam twice after wild on-stage beefs, to Tyler, the creator being treated like a national threat at UK customs over his old lyrics, and even MF Doom, who was blacklisted from performing in America ever again. Hip-hop's history is filled with artists who took rebellion too far. In this video, we're counting down 10 rappers who got banned from performing, not for lack of talent, but for being too raw for the industry to handle. Let's start with 50 Cent Curtis Jackson, the man who built his empire on controversy, chaos, and fearlessness. The same energy that made him a legend also got him blacklisted from some of the biggest stages in hip-hop. Most of his bans came from pure on-stage mayhem, concerts turning into street brawls, venues shutting down shows mid-set, and promoters saying never again after the G-Unit crew pulled up. But the craziest ban story? Hot 97 Summer Jam, the Super Bowl of New York hip-hop. 50 didn't just get banned once. My man got himself kicked out twice. That's right, 2 separate eras, 2 different explosions, and one artist bold enough to make history by being too real for the stage. The first meltdown happened back in 2004, when 50 was ruling the rap world from the top of the charts to the streets. During his set at Giant Stadium, things went left fast. Word is, 50 threw water toward the front row, where his ex-associate Bang'em Smurf just happened to be lurking, ready to start trouble. What started as petty shade turned into an all-out brawl, chairs flying through the air, fans ducking for cover, security losing control, and the stadium sounding more like a riot than a concert. It was so bad, even Hot 97's Ebro Darden later admitted the chair-throwing chaos was a final straw. The Summer Jam saga didn't fade out, it exploded. In 2018, 50 Cent reignited the drama, blasting Ebro on social media over the long-running restrictions and even hinting he'd pull up on him in person. But that was just one chapter in 50's long book of performance beefs. Back in 2005, he almost got blocked from crossing into Canada for a tour when Toronto's own Member of Parliament, Dan Mukteeg, begged the government to keep him out. The politician accused 50 of glorifying gang culture, violence, and drugs, basically calling him a walking crime wave with a microphone. Even with all that political smoke, Curtis still made it through customs and hit the stage in Toronto and Montreal like nothing happened.
Leave me banned, ladies and gentlemen. Leave me banned. I'm fine where I'm at now. I'm fine where I'm at. Don't unban me because no one's there to get.
These bans and nay-bans only added fuel to his legend. They became part of a mythology that built the 50 Cent brand, dangerous, unpredictable, and too raw for polite society. Every closed door only boosted his street credibility. But if 50 was the outlaw of New York, the next rapper on this list was a global rebel, one who couldn't even clear airport security without headlines. Enter Snoop Dogg. Calvin Cordo's Abroadus Jr., the dog father himself. Before the youth football leagues, the family-friendly commercials, and the Martha Stewart cooking shows, Snoop was the face of West Coast gangster rap, a man with charm, flow, and a record that made customs officers sweat. From early drug charges to gun arrests, and even a 1993 murder case that nearly ended his career, Snoop's past made him a walking red flag at borders worldwide. His biggest ban came courtesy of the UK. In 2006, Snoop and his crew were denied entry into the British Airways first-class lounge at Heathrow Airport, and that small insult turned into a full-blown riot. Chaos erupted, vandalism, police injuries, total madness. The headlines went global overnight, and British authorities hit him with a travel ban for public safety reasons. Snoop fought it for years, but the UK wasn't budging until 2010, when a tribunal finally overturned the ban. During those years of exile, Snoop opened up about how it hurt, not just his money but his bond with UK fans. He recalled how he and Diddy had planned a tour that got scrapped because of the ban. But the UK wasn't the only country that told him to stay home. In 2007, Australia hit him with the same treatment, denying his visa just before the MTV Australia Awards. The reason? Failing a character test. His long list of past charges, from cocaine possession to weapons violations, sealed the deal. To immigration officials, Snoop wasn't just a rapper, he was a liability with a beat. But to fans, he was the ultimate outlaw poet. Every country that tried to silence him only made his legend louder. The ban in Australia didn't stay forever. By September 2008, Snoop's appeal went through, and the gates reopened. But controversy followed him like smoke trails. Fast forward to 2025, and he was back in the headlines again when Australian Senator Ralph Babbitt demanded that Snoop be removed from performing at the AFL Grand Final, accusing him of promoting violence, drugs, and misogyny through his lyrics. Despite the noise, Snoop hit the stage at Melbourne's MCG on September 27th and delivered what many call one of the best pre-game performances in AFL history, proving once again, controversy just makes him shine brighter. And it wasn't just Australia or the UK. In 2012, Norway had their own issue with Uncle Snoop. On June 14th, he was detained at Oslo's Kjevik airport after officials found around 8 grams of marijuana in his luggage. He paid an $8,600 fine, performed that night, and still walk away with a 2-year entry ban that kicked in on July 28, 2012. As of October 2025, though, Snoop's name is clear across the board, no active bans anywhere, touring the world like the icon he is. But while Snoop eventually smoked his way past his restrictions, the next artist learned that sometimes your lyrics can become your biggest prison bars. Tyler, the Creator, real name Tyler O'Connor, a man who built an empire out of shock, rebellion, and saying the things everyone else was too scared to even think. As the mastermind behind Odd Future, Tyler's early music was pure chaos, dark, disturbing, and unapologetically offensive. His debut projects Bastard, 2009, and Goblin, 2011, weren't just albums. They were horror soundtracks drenching graphic violence, twisted fantasies, and raw emotion. The same lyrics that earned him cult fame also made governments nervous, labeling his art as dangerous propaganda. I actually can't get into the UK, Tyler once admitted. Why? Old lyrics from Bastard. The most infamous ban came in August 2015 when then Home Secretary Theresa May personally blocked him from entering the country. He was literally turned away at the border on his way to perform at the Reading and Leeds festivals. The Home Office issued a public statement accusing his lyrics of promoting hatred, violence, and homophobia. They even listed songs like VCR, Blow, Sarah, Tron Cat, and French as examples of content that glorified rape and murder. Tyler was furious. In interviews, he compared the treatment to being labeled a terrorist, saying it was a direct attack on freedom of speech and creativity. He explained that those lyrics came from fictional characters, not his real beliefs. But the UK didn't care. It took 4 years before the ban was finally lifted in May 2019. Once cleared, Tyler made a triumphant return, performing sold-out shows across the country. And in 2025, he's still set to perform there again as part of his Chromacopia World Tour. But the UK wasn't the only place that couldn't handle Tyler's rawness. New Zealand had already flagged him in Odd Future years earlier. Their government first turned the group away in 2012 and made the ban official in 2014, echoing the UK's reasons, claiming their presence could threaten public order. To officials, they were too wild. To fans, they were simply ahead of their time. Officials in New Zealand didn't just dislike Odd Future's energy, they labeled it dangerous. Authorities claimed the group's lyrics pose a threat to public order and accused them of inciting riots and promoting violence. Tyler fired back through his music, referencing the ban in his track Smuckers, rapping about being treated like a terrorist in exile from a country over lyrics. The ban was finally lifted in August 2019, when Immigration New Zealand declared he was no longer a potential threat. By January 2020, Tyler was back on stage at the Bay Dreams Festival, and with new tour dates planned for 2025, it's clear the world finally caught up to what he was saying all along. But Australia gave Tyler his own nightmare in 2015. His visa was delayed, then flat out denied, after feminist group Collective Shout launched a petition accusing him of promoting rape culture and misogyny. They claimed his songs clashed with Australia's national plan to reduce violence against women and children, sparking a national debate on art versus accountability. Years later, the tension cooled, and Tyler's been welcomed back with open arms, booking arena shows across Australia for August and September 2025. What began as censorship evolved into a larger conversation about artistic freedom and how words written in one era can echo far beyond it. While Tyler managed to turn his bands into lessons on growth and redemption, the next artist never got that chance. MF Doom, real name Daniel Dumile, was one of hip-hop's most enigmatic legends. Behind the metal mask and comic book alter ego was a lyrical genius whose bars reshaped underground rap forever. But Doom's real-life villain wasn't another MC. It was the U.S. immigration system. His entire adult life was haunted by paperwork, misfilings, and technicalities that would eventually exile him from the very country that made him a star. Born July 13, 1971, in Hounslow, London, to a Trinidadian mother and Zimbabwean father, Doom moved to the U.S. as a baby on AB2 tourist visa that expired in 1972. His mother tried to fix his status, even filing a petition in 1974, but no follow-up residency application was ever completed. From that point on, the government quietly labeled him a deportable alien. For decades, he lived unaware of how fragile his standing really was. While he was creating classics with KMD and his brother DJ Subrock, legal issues from the early 90s, like a 1993 assault case, were quietly piling up in his file, waiting to be used against him. Everything fell apart in 2010. After releasing Born Like This, Doom went overseas for a European tour. But when he tried to return home to New York, immigration shut the door. Customs officials denied him entry, citing 3 reasons: no valid visa, a past conviction for moral turpitude, and over a year of unlawful presence after turning 18, triggering an automatic 10-year re-entry ban. Just like that, the masked legend was locked out of America for good. The fallout was brutal. Doom was separated from his wife, Jasmine, and their 5 kids for almost 2 years, only keeping in touch through video calls until his family finally joined him in London in 2012. His U.S. career effectively ended. No shows, no tours, no stage to return to. In a 2012 Q magazine interview, he said calmly, "I'm done with the United States. It's no big deal." He even references exile on the track Banish with Gennaro Jarrell, turning pain into poetry. MF Doom lived out his final years in the UK, passing away on October 31st, 2020, still barred from the country he once called home. The controversy around MF Doom didn't end with his death. It came roaring back in 2021, when his classic track Rhymes Like Dimes appeared on the official Biden-Harris inauguration playlist. Fans erupted online, calling out the hypocrisy. They reminded everyone that the very same Democratic administration, under Obama, had enforced the immigration policies that kept Doom locked out of the U.S. until the day he died. His story became a haunting symbol of how bureaucratic red tape and decades-old mistakes can destroy lives, even those of cultural icons. But while Doom's exile was rooted in immigration law, the next rapper learned that a criminal record can be just as powerful a barrier. Ja Rule, born Jeffrey Bruce Atkins Sr., was once the soundtrack of the early 2000s. His fusion of street grit and R&B smoothness created timeless hits like Always on Time and Mesmerize. But decades later, his past came back swinging. In February 2024, J.A. was denied entry into the United Kingdom just days before his Sunrise tour was set to launch, forcing him to cancel the entire British leg. The tour, meant to celebrate 25 years since his debut album, was supposed to kick off in Cardiff before hitting cities like London, Birmingham, Leeds, and Glasgow. J.A. revealed he had personally dropped over $500,000 into production, and with ticket sales sitting at nearly 85% sold out, the last-minute denial was both a financial and emotional blow. He vented on X, calling the move unfair to him and his fans. Ticketmaster pulled the plug, issued refunds, and J.A. blamed his promoter for pushing ahead despite knowing about his record. British authorities didn't mince words. Their immigration policy clearly bars anyone who's served more than 12 months in prison. For Ja Rule, that was a box he couldn't uncheck. His criminal past includes a 2010 guilty plea for attempted weapon possession, leading to a 2-year sentence, and a 2011 conviction for tax evasion that added 28 more months. He served roughly 2 years before being released in May 2013, but those charges still follow him like a shadow. As of October 2025, there's no sign the UK has lifted the ban, leaving him shut out indefinitely. And because the internet never forgets, his old nemesis 50 Cent couldn't resist clowning him online, mocking his cancelled shows and calling it juice all over the place. J.A. clapped back, proving that even after 2 decades, their beef remains undefeated. But this wasn't just another setback. It was a reminder that the past never really lets go. No matter how far an artist evolves, some records can't be wiped clean. And Ja Rule isn't alone. If he thought the UK's decision was harsh, he might take some comfort knowing other rappers have faced similar exiles. The Game, for example, has turned banned overseas into a recurring chapter of his career. Born Jason Taylor, The Game built his reputation as the unapologetic face of West Coast realism. But that same authenticity, the gang ties, the criminal charges, the no-filter attitude, became his biggest roadblock internationally. It all started in April 2011 when he was detained at the Canadian border before a 14-date tour. Officials deported him back to the U.S., citing alleged Bloods gang affiliations and organized crime links. The tour was cancelled, fans left disappointed, and a pattern was set in motion. 8 years later, déjà vu. In January 2019, the Game tried again to tour Canada, hitting cities like Vancouver and Ottawa. Once again, border agents said no. Same story, same customs issues. Canada was off-limits for good. Then in 2016, Australia followed suit. Upon landing for his tour, the Game was stopped and denied entry due to improper visa documentation, which insiders said was code for "we don't want the gang life here." The entire tour was cancelled, and by 2017, he was even accused of promoting a fake Australian tour, leading to a 2021 court order hitting him with over $500,000 in damages. And just when things couldn't get worse, they did. In March 2025, his shows in Vienna and Berlin were cancelled after Kanye West posted a photo of the Game wearing a hoodie with a swastika symbol. Promoters immediately dropped him, apologized to fans, and issued refunds, citing zero tolerance for hate imagery. The backlash in Europe was swift and brutal. And even back home, fans noticed something telling. The Game was missing from Kendrick Lamar's pop-out, Ken and Friend concert in June 2024 at the Kia Forum. The silence around his absence said everything. Cam'ron's ban wasn't exactly permanent, more like a revolving door of bureaucratic confusion. Despite being turned away in 2010, he managed to perform in Canada at later dates without issue, suggesting that his entry denials were handled on a case-by-case basis. Still, the inconsistency frustrated fans and promoters alike, as shows would often be announced, only to be mysteriously cancelled days before. The pattern created a reputation that booking Cam came with a risk. One immigration officer's no could derail an entire tour. But Cam'ron wasn't the only rapper whose border battles turned into hip-hop legend. For some, the denials became part of their mythology, proof that their street credibility was too real for government paperwork. And in hip-hop, being too real often sells better than any tour ever could. Cam turned the situation into another chapter of his hustler narrative, continuing to release music, act, and even launch viral business ventures that reminded everyone he might be banned from countries, but never from culture. Across all these stories, from MF Doom's exile to Ja Rule's denied entry, from the Game's international bans to Waka Flocka's state-by-state shutdowns, one truth echoes loud. Hip-hop's global dominance doesn't mean equal global access. Laws, reputations, and the ghosts of past mistakes still determine who gets to perform where. For every platinum plaque, there's a passport stamp that never was. And for these artists, sometimes the biggest border isn't on a map. It's the one between redemption and reputation. Cam'ron had performed in Toronto earlier that same summer at the Caribana Bash event, proving the 2010 border issue was more about selective scrutiny than a full-on ban. By 2014, he was back performing in Canada, suggesting the restriction was temporary and tied to standard immigration rules for U.S. rappers with rap sheets. But that same year, Cam stirred chaos in London when he no-showed a long-awaited concert at the Forum, his first UK gig in nearly a decade. He reportedly arrived backstage, confirmed by DJ Tim Westwood, then suddenly dipped before performing, allegedly after learning promoter Mega Man from So Solid Crew was there to collect an old debt from a 2003 show. Fans were furious, storming the stage as Cam later posted online pretending he never showed up, leaving his reputation in London permanently scarred. While not a formal ban, the fiasco nearly blacklisted him from UK promoters who swore never to work with him again. Cam'ron defended himself, claiming the environment felt unsafe and referencing past robberies involving US rappers in London. Earlier controversy around his 2009 album Crime Pays, when a Canadian editor tried to get it banned, didn't affect his touring. As of October 2025, Cam remains unrestricted, touring freely in the U.S. and staying active in music and business. His story proves that even temporary border disputes or unpaid debts can have long-term consequences for an artist's global reach. Then there's Lil Wayne, one of hip-hop's biggest exports, yet one of its most frequently restricted. Despite selling over 20 million albums and winning 5 Grammys, Wayne's rap sheet has closed more doors than any label exec could. It started back in 2006 when a chaotic show at Morgan State ended in near riot after someone threw cash into the crowd, injuring 3 women and getting him permanently banned from the campus. By 2011, the UK denied him a work visa over his 2007 gun conviction, cancelling his entire tour. And in 2022, deja vu hit again when British officials refused him entry to headline the Strawberries and Cream Festival, citing his previous 12-month-plus sentence, Trump pardon or not. The blow was personal in 2025 when the NFL and Rock Nation snubbed him from his hometown Super Bowl lineup in New Orleans, choosing Kendrick Lamar instead. Wayne said the rejection broke him and responded the only way he knows, through music, dropping band from N.O., with Nicki Minaj firing shots at Jay-Z and Rock Nation. His career shows that for some rappers, the punishment never ends, no matter how much success or forgiveness they earn. And finally, Eminem, the man who spent decades testing how far art can go before it gets censored. He's never faced a full-on UK ban, but his 2014 rejection from headlining British Summertime at Hyde Park came close. Royal Parks officials called his lyrics offensive and inappropriate, fearing backlash from nearby residents. The debate even reached London Mayor Boris Johnson's office, where his chief of staff reportedly admitted he didn't even know who Eminem was, handing the call right back. Instead, M doubled down, booking and selling out 2 Wembley Stadium shows in protest. Earlier in his career, Sheffield University banned his music, labeling it misogynistic and anti-gay. In Manchester, police even warned him not to perform Kill You, so he performed it twice. Over the years, those controversies only sharpened his brand, the rebel who says what others won't. Since 2014, no new bans have been reported. If anything, the censorship only made Eminem bigger, proof that when institutions try to silence hip-hop, they usually just end up amplifying it.